Hello everyone, and this is where we left off in the previous lesson. So starting with this lesson, we will start shading the scene, we'll start building our materials. So the first material we're going to take a look at is the material for the cake. So this is the final output that I have from redshift. So we're going to start off with the cake and then we'll go through the other materials one by one. Okay, so let's do one thing. I'm going to just hide a lot of this stuff. So let me just close the render and I am going to hide majority of it. So I don't want, we're going to hide the cakes in the background and primarily just, hide all the berries. And we want to hide the sprinkles. Okay, so that's taken care of. And hide the crumbs for now. And then within the cake, I am just going to take a single material and we'll bring it out here. So this is my cake. So for now, we'll just, since that's what we're working on, we'll just render that. All right, so let's build a simple shader for the cake and then we'll continue. So let's take a redshift network. We'll call it cake and we'll jump in. I'll create a RS material and connect the out color to surface. Okay, and then we'll come back to the cake. We'll come to material and shopnet 1 and pick up cake. All right, so let's hit a render and then we'll start. Yeah, so there you go. So that's my basic scene at the moment. Let me just do a region render for this. So I'm going to do a region render at about this level and let's jump in. Now we'll first take care of the most complex thing, which is I want to get a little bit of subsurface scattering on the cake, so it looks a little softer. Just giving it basic coloring and specularity makes it look a little too hard. So we want to work a little bit with subsurface scattering. Okay, but we'll work with the single scatter, like this one. We don't need the multiple scattering in this particular case. Okay, so we'll start off with a basic color and I want to go a little towards, we want to make something dark like a brownie. So we're going to start with a fairly dark shade. And okay, the reflection is a bit too much. So get the reflection IOR down to about 1.25. Yeah, and get the blur to about 0.45. Yeah, so you have something that is relatively reflective, but not too shiny. Okay, so this is done. Now what you want to do is you want to work with the transmittance color and the scatter color. So we're going to keep the transmittance color to somewhere around a orange or something like that. And if you just increase the absorption scale, nothing is going to happen. Since this is a solid object, the absorption scale primarily kicks in if you have transparency. But it also kicks in once you increase the scatter scale. Okay, so since scatter scale is at 0, the absorption scale is not going to do anything. So if I increase the scatter scale even a little bit, then you start seeing the effect. So if I increase the C. So now if I change this color to something, see now it's green. So this is fine. Okay. What I want to do is let's take the absorption scale to about 25. So it looks a little denser. See, so this looks a little better. It feels a little soft. And it's looking a little bit, gelatinous, but that's okay. This is what we want. Let me just make this bigger so we can see the whole cake. And then we're going to color the scatter coefficient as well. Okay, so let's take this to a darkish red as well, so somewhere around there. Okay, but increase the scatter scale. If I do a snapshot of this at the moment, okay, you'll also start getting a few sort of these bright fireflies. We'll take care of that momentarily. Okay, so let me just make a snapshot of this. And what you want to do is you want to take the scatter scale, the higher it goes, the more, subsurface scattering sort of kicks in. So if you take it to about 5, see, this is what you're getting. What you want to do is you want to keep it to somewhere around the same value, or let's try about 20. See, so 20 looks a little better, but get the scattering phase to a negative value. Okay, so that sort of makes it a little better as well. See, so this actually looks a little too soft right now. So we don't want that much. So now what you want to do is you want to take the scatter scale and make it darker. And you can increase the absorption scale as well. See, so there, that looks a little bit better. Let's try to take this to about 50. See, now lowering this doesn't help, so it has to be higher, so it looks a little more dense. And this needs to go darker still, so let's try to get it towards reddish and darker. Yeah, and that looks a little better. I think 15 is good. Let's try to be about 15. Yeah, I think that's okay. 15 or 20 should be good enough. We don't want it too high. If it goes too high, then it looks like it stops looking like a cake. Yeah, so we don't want like scatter scale to be too high, even though this doesn't look too bad. Okay, but let's keep it about 25. I think 25 is nice. But yeah, that is primarily what we want. Like if we do a comparison between with and without subsurface, like if I make a snapshot of this, and then if I just get this to 0, you'll see the difference. See, so this feels a little too solid, and this has a much better, like a light feel to it. So yeah, so let's keep this to about 25. Now, how to take care of those fireflies that you're getting? Like if you notice here, you'll start seeing like these red dots that you're getting. So what you want to do is come to the ROPNet, and within the redshift parameters, you will find, if you come to settings, and in sampling filter, you will find max subsample intensity, which is default at 4. Okay, what you want to do is like, let me do a snapshot of this, drop it down to 1, and that will, see, now those red dots are gone. See, you were getting red dots before, like you're getting like 1, 2, 3 over here, and they do show up, like they stand out a little too much. Okay, see, now those are gone. So yeah, so just drop the max subsample intensity to 1 and that will work. Okay, so this is the basic, shader that we want. And we can assign the same shader to the crumbs as well, but we'll take care of that, once we finish building the material for this. Okay, so this is fine, but now let's take care of the actual, texture for the cake. So let's get the scatter scale down to 0. So we are back to, something normal. We'll just, once we have built the texture, we will bring back the scatter scale. So a few things I want to take care of, which is primarily I want like a little bit of color variation on the edges. So like when you're baking, so sometimes the edges get a little burnt or something. So if you want to do something like that, or maybe like the edges are slightly lighter and the center area is a little darker. So we're going to take care of that first. So the first thing I want is I just want the color to be here. Okay, I want the color to be multiplied with, whatever else we want to do. So I'm going to just right click, I'm going to copy this, come to color and take a RS color absolute and just paste it here. So an absolute generally takes like a negative value and turns into positive. We don't have any negative values, but this will just give me like the basic color that I want. Okay, so let's open this up, and it's fairly big. So you can actually like minimize these now. So this is my default color, which is the same color that I have. Okay. The second thing I want to do is I want to take a curvature map. And if you plug in the curvature, you will immediately see something else. See, there you go. This is exactly what I want. What you want to do is just sort of adjust the radius a little bit, so it's a little softer like that. The higher the number of samples are, the more detailed it gets. So if I take it to about 24 samples, you'll see that it picks up, it gets more stronger. If I get it to say 64 samples, it gets even stronger. Okay, like it's picking up more detail because it has more samples to work with. But 8 is good for now because 8 gives me like a softer feel, so which is nice. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to take a ramp. So take an RS ramp, change the source to alt. Okay, so that means it can take in this guy, and this goes to input, and that comes out to color. And yeah, change this to alt. And what you want to do is get this to like a medium gray or something like that. Okay, and then just take a multiply. So we need a vector multiply because these two are colors. And so plug in the first one, plug in the second one. A vector is 3 values if you don't know that. So RGB is a vector, position is a vector because it's X, Y, Z. just a single value like roughness, that will be a float value, okay, or a scalar value. Okay, so let's just take this and we'll plug it out to diffuse and see. So now you're getting like this nice little shading on the side. You can try to get this slightly brighter if you want. See, so you're getting like this. So this is what I wanted, primarily. If you want, you can adjust it a little more. Like, if you want this to be stronger, see. So now it's only over there. But the way it is, I'm quite happy. Okay, so and if you want to like check it the other way around, we can invert that. See. So if you want like the edges to be darker and this to be brighter, but I think this looks better. This is a better result. Okay, the second thing I want to do is I also want to have a little bit of like cellular noise on it. So a cake is sort of like a bread texture. So it's got these cells, small porous cells. So we can do that using like a cellular map. Okay, so let's take a noise. We'll take an RS noise. And this is default is kept to cell. Okay, so let's just plug this in over here to diffuse color. Mapping is inbuilt, so we don't need to do anything about that. These things don't have any effect on the cellular map. So your complexity, amplitude, distortion, none of these have any effect. They only come into play if you are on fractal or turbulence. So this is fine, like we don't need to worry about these. We just need to worry about the coordinates. So let's get this to about 10. And let's get this a little higher as well. They're sort of like a combination. I think this is fine. And what you want to do is just adjust like the bias and the min-max value. So we're going to increase the bias till we get like finer points like these. And we can also lower the, see, so they become like very fine dots. And the first thing I want to do is I want to connect this to a bump map. Okay, before we connect it to our actual color, I want to connect it to a bump map. Okay, so let's just take a bump, and the bump map is here. Like it's not in the material, it's here. Sorry, if that's a shader, this is the actual material. So the bump map comes there. So just take the out color from our RS noise and connect it to input, and the default value is too high. So we'll bring this down to 0.1 before we connect it. And let's connect this to bump, and there you go, like even 0.1 is too high. Okay, so a few things, or actually let's do one. Let's get this to 0.01. Yeah, see, so you have like this nice bumpy little surface on it. Yeah, like if I do a snapshot, if I make this 0, then you can see the difference. See, so that's with the bump map, and that is without the bump map. Yeah, so 0.008. Yeah, I think that should be okay. And then we'll take another ramp just to sort of control this, and I'll plug this to input, and we will set it to alt, and let's plug this into the diffuse for now just to see what we have. And then you can sort of just take this and maybe control it a bit. See, so if you want the dots to be a little bit brighter or darker, you can do it that way. Or if you want the height to be stronger, see. Yeah, I think this is okay. And then just pull this back, and we can take another multiply. And we can plug these in. And see, so you have like these nice darker dots on this. Again, like just make it slightly lighter than it is at the moment. Yeah, but it looks better that way. Okay, let's also do one more thing, is that we can also add like an additional noise map on the whole thing. Okay, so I can just take another RS noise. Let me just plug this in and change the noise to fractal. Yeah, I think it's at this level itself doesn't look too bad. We'll just increase the frequency scale, so we have a little more noise, and the complexity, and yeah, let's increase the distortion a little, and let's take another multiply, and just plug it into diffuse. Yeah, okay. So that's way too much. So what happens is you'll get color here. So you can just get the color to be lighter, So you can just sort of adjust it how much you want. If it's looking too dark, it's fine because we are going to bring in the subsurface scatter and then it will look better. For now, it's okay. Let me just do an alt and we'll just adjust that. Or what you can do is at the end of it, you can put like a color correct and you can just sort of adjust, like if you want it brighter, we can adjust the gamma or something like that and just make the whole thing brighter. If you want to like do a little bit of a hue shift, yeah, actually that's not a bad idea. And just adjust the contrast. And maybe we can jump up the saturation scale. Yeah, see. So what you can do is, even if you don't get the colors like absolutely right, in this node tree, you can always take a color correction later and then, do a slight bit of adjustment at that point of time. Okay, let's do one thing. Now we can bring back let's try one final thing, which is I want to put the the cellular noise. So let's just call this cells and let's combine these two, so let's take an add. I just want to see what they will look like if you add them together. And let me just plug this into the diffuse color temporarily. No, let's take a multiply. This and that. Okay, and let's do one thing. Let's take a color correct here. Yeah, I want to use this for specular, which is why I'm adjusting this. And we're going to plug this, like let this come back. And I'm going to plug this through another color correct into the reflection weight, so this particular guy here. So there you go. So into that one. You can also plug it into the reflection color, that's also fine. So we can plug it into reflection color and there you go. See that doesn't look too bad actually. Let's try one thing. Let's try to adjust the gamma to something slightly brighter. Yeah, and lower the contrast. Yeah, there you go. So now the cells look like they're kind of going in and they're a little darker. And if you feel like the specularity has gone down too much, you can always just up the IOR. So we can just take this, make it about 1.4. No, 1.35. Yeah, and let's lower the roughness a little. No, that's too shiny. Yeah, 0.45 is good. Okay, so there you go. So that's like the basic cake shader that we have. I just want to do one thing, which is, this little guy here. Let's make it brighter still. I don't want the cells to be that dark. Yeah, okay, I think that's okay. We are going to get the crumbs on top of it as well, so that will also add to the overall sort of look of it, so we don't need to worry too much about it. Like if I make this 0, I just want to see what it looks like. Okay, let's try 0.1. Whoa, yeah, sorry, 0.01. I keep forgetting how high it suddenly goes. So 0.085. So now that we've done that much, I think we can turn back the subsurface scattering on. So let's just plug this in. Okay, so let's just come back here to the scatter scale and we were at 25. So let's bring it back to 25. And there you go. Okay, now one thing you can do if you want is I could duplicate this, do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. And we can plug this into the subsurface scatter color. So this is the scatter coefficient. Yeah, that one. Okay, so we can actually just connect the whole thing into scatter coefficient. So let's bring that into scatter coefficient. And we can make it darker and sort of adjust the contrast. So that picks up the overall color a lot better. So you still have all the textural values that you had, but now it's coming in through the subsurface as well. This has got a little too dark. So we could try to adjust that a little. That is coming in through my curvature map. Yeah, so this guy. So let's get this a little higher. But yeah, we don't have to worry about this part too much because you'll have like the chocolate, coming out from there. So that's fine. Yeah, actually we need that dark because you want that color variation on the edges. Yeah, so that's basically it. So this is the, let me just get the roughness down a little bit just to make it slightly shiny. Okay, now we want to apply the same material to the crumbs, but the problem is that if we apply the same material to the crumbs, since this is a curvature map, which is sort of like an ambient occlusion map, the crumbs will get a little too dark. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to duplicate the material. Like, let me just show you. If I let this render through a little bit and I'll turn on the crumbs, what I'm going to do is I'll come into the crumb, we'll assign a material, and this will be cake as well. And so if I turn on the crumb instance, okay, let this render and then we'll turn on the crumb instance. Like, we'll make a snapshot of this. This is a little in the extreme, but you can always adjust it a little later. Like if you feel the gradient is a little too much, you can always adjust those things. Like I can just come into the ShopNet and, make adjustments. Like this one can be slightly lighter. Okay, so let me just bring back, the crumbs just to see what happens. So if I bring back the crumbs and we decide to hit a render, so you'll notice like the crumbs have gotten like absolutely black. That's because since it's so small, the ambient occlusion map or the curvature map like completely takes over. So it's not a good idea to use the same material on the crumbs. Even though this isn't looking too bad, it looks like chocolate flakes. So if you want, you can, if you're happy with it, you can sort of keep it. But what you want to do is you want to sort of duplicate the cake material. So let's just come in here and I'm going to do like a Control-C, Control-V. Let's call this as crumbs. And what you want to do is come in here and get rid of the RS ramp. So this comes in directly over there. So this is not in use anymore. And we'll just do a check. So let this render through and then we'll do a comparison between the two, when we replace the material. Okay, so let me just do a snapshot of this. I will stop this and let's come into the crumb and we'll change the material to crumbs. Okay, so the only difference here is that here we are not using the curvature map, so that's the only difference. The rest of it is completely the same. And if I do a render now, this should look a little better. See, now it's not looking as dark, like immediately there's a difference. So the only thing you want to do is you want to avoid using the curvature map for the crumbs. But now what we can do is we can come into our main cake shader and make it darker if we want to, like here and here we can make it darker. Because since the crumbs are on top, they kind of hide everything. But I can take this, like let's say if we go black, then you should be able to see it through that. See, so now this area is getting darker. Because it's sort of like it peeks through the crumbs. Like we could try to go completely black. Let's see what that does. Like if we go black, that might be a little too much, but we can just do a check. See, but now you can make out, like this is lighter and this is darker. So yeah, so compensate for the crumbs and you can make adjustments. But there you go. See, that looks a lot better. It has that soft enough feel, but the crumbs don't go as dark as they had gone before. See, so this is before where it's completely dark and then this is now. See, so those are almost near black, which is something we don't want. So here like the cake is black, but the crumbs on top are lighter. Okay, what we can also do is if you want, so yeah, so it's a choice up to you. Like if you want to keep it darker, you can keep it darker. That's completely up. If you feel like this is better, you can keep it to that. Okay, that's fine too. Let's try to do one thing. I want to take the crumb and make it slightly bigger. Let me just take a transform. Make it say 1.3. Okay. And let me hit a reload. And then we'll try to go back to the original material again. See, so those were too small. these are a little bit bigger. But now they're kind of completely covering the cake, which doesn't look too bad. Yeah. It gives the cake a very grainy kind of a feel. And let's also try one thing. Let's give it back the original cake shader. So let's do a snapshot here. We will stop this. Come into ShopNet cake. And yeah, let's not make it this dark. Let's keep it here, medium gray. And come to the crumb. Change this back to cake. And let's hit render. And that should pretty much be it. Like, this is what we want. Yeah, I think this isn't bad. Keep the curvature map, just sort of adjust the crumb size a little bit and adjust the darkness of the curvature map, and that will sort of work it out for you. Like, it's up to you. Like, you can always just go in and make it lighter. Like, I can just come into ShopNet. What we can do is I can take this and bring it here. So it's a little bit lighter, and then this doesn't need to be that dark, so we can make it. If we want, we can set up like a proper render and see what this looks like. But yeah, there you go. See, that looks a little bit better. Do we want it more shiny? Let me just come in here and let's get this to 1.45 and slightly lesser. No, I think that's a little too much. Yeah, that's a little too much. 1.35 is fine. Okay, and as a final thing, I can come into ROPNet, and what we can do is keep the minimum maximum samples to 4 and 256, and we will turn off the IPR. Okay, so let me just make this like big enough so we are rendering the whole thing, and turn off the IPR so we can see like an actual render. So this is like my point cloud pass, and then it will do a proper render so we can see what the cake actually looks like. But yeah, remember to do this, like in the sampling options, remember to lower the max sample intensity, because if that is high, then you'll see those fireflies. Yeah, so there you go. So this is the final render that we have. If you want it brighter or something else, you can always make some final adjustments in post-production. Okay, but here I think at this level it's perfectly fine. Like, it has a nice bit of detail because of the crumbs. We are getting our subsurface scatter, and the specularity is fine. Like, it doesn't look too shiny, but it has enough of a shine that it looks decent. Alright, so that's basically it. So this is the cake shader, and in the next lesson we will start building the shader for the ice cream.